It certainly has been a while since I've actually reviewed a piece of media, hasn't it? Apologies, I've been in a bit of a motivation hole as of late when it comes to scripting and editing. However, if there's any franchise that can motivate me back into the grind, it is Old Reliable. I have reviewed 2 Volume 9 episodes before, but I don't think I went far enough in, so we will be retreading that ground. That, and now we have full context of Volume 9 to make some more definitive statements regarding certain parts of those episodes. Volume 9 itself is a strange beast, being disconnected from the main setting in favor of an Alice in Wonderland style story, in which it attempts to tell a more introspective story, which we will go over in exhaustively autistic detail. So let's get started. The season opens up with a RWBY POV of the end of Volume 8, along with a sequence of Neo trying to kill RWBY mid-fall. Keep the distance between the two in mind, I'm not done with it yet. RWBY then wakes up on a beach in a strange world. A place of little sense, most of which being unintentional, but I'm getting ahead of myself. RWBY finds herself looping back to the same place over and over as she tries to move forward. I'm sure it'll all make sense in the end. RWBY then comes across a talking mouse she names Little, and here we have an establishment of one of RWBY's main conflicts. When RWBY introduces herself, Little says this.
I'm Ruby Rose.
And to Ruby Rose is your purpose?
After the disastrous events of Volume 8 that led her here, she will begin to doubt and question her purpose and if she's good enough to save the world, which we will get into the meat of in due time. For now, Little offers to help RWBY find her friends, and we cut to Weiss and Blake looking for Gamble Shroud. How fucking convenient that Blake and Weiss managed to find each other in such a short period of time. Especially since Weiss not only fell after Blake, but not an insignificant amount of time either. Their reuniting happening off screen adds to the abject laziness of it all, especially with certain information we find out later.
Weiss, what happened after we fell? We should focus on finding everyone else first.
You can tell her while you walk, Weiss. Of course, this means telling Blake that Penny is dead would open up the possibilities of the moronics contemplating their retarded actions. So of course we move on. They find Grumble Shroud wrapped up in vines. How very convenient that not only did Blake and Weiss manage to find each other despite falling at significantly different times, they just so happened to find Gibble Shrund, which not only fell before Weiss, but fell off in a different direction. And before you can fully process the hyper-convenient bullshit this all is, we are hit with another dose of absolute idiocy. Blake and Weiss attempt to free Gambino Shruttle from the vines.
What are you, retarded?
Jesus fucking Christ, where do I even begin? First off, while Weiss does state she is low on dust...
Well, good news. I'm low on dust.
I'm pretty sure it would be worth using some to free a teammate's primary weapon. Having someone fully armed and fighting with you is more than worth it. Second, just use your semblance, Weiss. Summon your knight with the big fucking sword. If her aura is still out, then wait until it's refilled. It's better that you are at full strength and fully armed when looking for your friends in an alternate dimension anyways. And finally, we are simply going to continue the trend of forgetting that Blake can use a Getsuga style blade beam. A move she has not used since Volume 2. Literally one swing of her sheath and the vines are gone. But because RWBY has taken a hard stance against characters using basic common sense since Volume 5, they get trapped in the vines by a bunch of talking mice. What the fuck am I even watching? Then we see why Blake and Weiss were degraded into gibbering retards even more than they already were. This turns out to be Little's village, and if Weiss and Blake acted at all like they had IQs in the positive digits, they would likely not have met up with RWBY. Good God, this is so hyper-contrived. Even more so when we see Little fast asleep on Ruby's shoulder. How is she even able to give directions if she was asleep? Actually, Little's pronouns are they. No one cares about the pronouns of a fictional talking mouse. Anyways, with this group of the Moronics almost reunited, they set out to find Yang. On a side note, I'd just like to mention that I despise Little and will hereby refer to her as Baggage, who lives up to her name by once again falling asleep instead of being a guide. Ruby then asks a very stupid question.
Weiss, I was wondering, if you fell, and are there others down here too? What happened?
I don't know if anyone else fell. No.
Yes you do. All of you do, actually. These innocent people right here all fell into the void. Did you forget? I know you all had your backs turned, but could you not hear the screams? Hell, given how many people were in the void, it should be a reasonable and logical assumption that people fell into the void after that big of an explosion. People that we never see. Because of course we don't. The Moronics come across a creature that has taken too much meth as it rambles. Before it can really do anything, Yang conveniently shows up. Okay, just stop. Please. Seriously, I can't take all of this contrivance so close together. They drive off the meth addict, and we get this baffling dialogue exchange.
Yang!
Damn it! You weren't supposed to be here.
If you thought we wouldn't come for you, then you must have forgotten who raised me.
Yang's portion makes sense. She sacrificed herself to ensure Ruby made it out okay, and seeing her here makes her feel like she did it for nothing. That's good. Ruby's response, however, sounds like she's saying she came down here for the specific purpose of looking for Yang, which isn't the case. None of them had any idea they would be teleported to another universe if they fell into the void. The bad dialogue continues on with,
What happened to your arm?
I don't think you'd believe me if I told you.
Look at where you are, Yang. Remember how you all got here and what you had fended off not even 5 minutes ago? And just the overall magical bullshit that you all have been dealing with for over a year in universe? The talking raccoon that stole your arm is very believable, you retard.
Why not? You seem trustworthy.
Oh, Baggage, you naive, stupid fucking rodent. Trusting either of these cunts will be the end of you. Anywho's, Blake tackle hugs Yang because we really need to get those keys going if we want to make the seals clap by episode 6. Ruby then learns that Penny is dead and faints. A bit over the top, but I'll give it a fraction of a star. Everything that has happened up until now would naturally be overwhelming. The disastrous failure of her plan and the bizarre nature of the world she finds herself in. The final blow that knocks her out is knowing that a friend she did so much to save still died. It's not much, but I'll take it. Anyways, Blake says they're in a fairy tale as we see what is basically a video game stage select screen from some shitty Mario Kart knockoff. Did fucking Ubisoft make this? And this fucking cursed-ass landscape is how we end the first episode. Off to a rocky start, but don't worry, it'll get worse. Much, much worse. Episode 2 begins with the Moronics trying to figure out exactly where they are.
I know this place is weird, but a fairy tale? I mean, that's impossible.
As much as it makes me want to vomit, Ruby has a point. While impossible wouldn't be the optimal word given the insane amount of magical bullshit the Moronics have seen, to assume you've been transported to a fictional story would sound absurd even here. And pointing to the talking animal, something far less impressive than the genie that can pause time and show you the past by manipulating reality, doesn't prove your point. Am I being a bit too autistic? Perhaps. But it's worth mentioning because this whole discussion is a waste of fucking time. It also just makes the characters, specifically Yang and Blake, look more retarded than they already are for humoring the notion they're literally in a children's story. Blake then finally decides to chime in after starting this stupid conversation.
The girl who fell through the world. I think we're in the ever after.
That's the name you came up with? Really? Fucking Chris Chan had a better name for his fictional setting. This is something I'd expect in a Shrek movie. You might as well just call it Wonderland at that point. You know what? Fuck it. I'm calling this place C-197. The Moronics then go over the plot of The Girl Who Fell Through the World and try to figure out how to get out of C-197. Said way to get out is through passing through a big-ass tree.
I'll bet the Jinxy Peddler has it.
Who?
The Jinxy Peddler? That's the only talking raccoon I know.
Then why didn't you mention it earlier, you stupid UR-Contiglier? Baggage offers to lead them to the talking raccoon, but falls asleep. Again, can we get rid of this useless fucking Murid? RWBY tries to wake her up, but she just changes positions and doesn't try again. She is the only one who knows how to navigate this retarded fucking world. I fucking hate the cute animal exists just to be cute trope. Fucking Veilguard does this shit better because as much as I want to make fried chicken out of Asan, at least he's useful in combat and traversal. And no, Baggage will not become useful in the future. Her only contribution is to emotionally manipulate the audience, and oh boy, I can't wait to talk about that bullshit. They go over more of the specifics of the story, about Alex starting a war with the villagers due to being a lying cunt.
If we're going to go to this town, we need to be careful. Alex didn't know their customs and ended up starting a war among the townsfolk.
Well, yeah, but she was kind of a mean person, right? She lied and cheated her way through most of the book.
Weiss then responds with this.
She was trying to survive. The morals of those old stories are so simplistic.
Where to start? First off, implying simplistic morals are inherently bad is laughable coming from Weiss, who has shared in the simplistic morals of the Moronics. If she actually believed this, then she would share a similar pragmatic view to James, or at least a greater understanding of why he did the things he did. And even if we want to say that the fall of Atlas has changed some of her views, that is never expanded upon, so this response comes out of nowhere. Second, from a more meta perspective, the audacity of these writers saying that older stories, a lot of which this show takes inspiration from, are at least inherently flawed due to their straightforward themes and messages, is laughable given the Moronics have hyper-simplistic morals. And whenever they tried to do moral complexity, it was completely unintentional. James was wrong on every pragmatic thing he did. RWBY lying to him was the right thing to do because her fears of the truth affecting James were correct and he couldn't be fully trusted. Go fuck yourselves. And there isn't anything inherently bad about simplistic morals. Many of the greatest and most beloved stories are built on simple morals. I mean, no one's gonna go around here saying Aesop's fables are bad because their messaging is very straightforward. Just don't put your characters in situations that require morality to be more flexible and you should be good. And finally, it really is a waste of time having Weiss say this since it contributed literally nothing to any character development. So I'm simply left wondering, why even write it if it never leads to anything significant or implies any changes in Weiss's character?
The town's just up ahead.
So, despite Baggage failing to do her job, the Moronics have still managed to find the right path to the village.
Fuck you.
How fucking convenient. Then she just goes back to sleep. Why are you so fucking useless? After some more bumblefuck pandering, Weiss says this.
It's all gone. There's nothing left for me to go back to. Just like Beacon.
Yep, it was largely your fault.
You did the best you could for Atlas, Weiss.
But it wasn't enough. We hatched a crazy plan that put a whole kingdom at risk, and we don't even know if we saved the relics from...
While it's good we're having this conversation, it's really weird that Blake and Yang aren't in it. They also played a part in it and accelerated James's paranoia-driven insanity with their own lies and secrets. but shipping takes priority over addressing the major consequences of their actions. But that's fine, I'm sure they'll be in one later on. And while RWBY doesn't have much to say here, it's just building up to a bigger conversation later. I'm sure that's actually going to happen. The Moronics find a bridge crossing over to another racing level, and Baggage lives up to her name.
All we do is cross the bridge, and we'll be, well, wherever over there is.
You don't know?
Nope. Never been this far from home.
Then how the fuck do you know that this is the way to the talking raccoon, you retard? That's not even the worst part. Baggage doesn't know how to get back to her village, so she decides she'll live by the bridge. And I find myself asking once again, how the fuck did you even lead the Moronics this far, you turd waffle? It really was just luck. Fucking end me.
Would you like to come with us?
No, Weiss, we could have been free. Let her be crushed by the rocks. Traitor! The Moronics entered the village and find the talking raccoon selling a bunch of bullshit. Yang's strategy for getting her arm back is to be a violent psychopath.
In the book, Alex had to barter with Jinxy for her dagger.
Yeah, I think I'd rather hit him.
I know you got your arm stolen, but that doesn't really seem to be a foolproof plan. The talking raccoon, no, I will not call him the Jinxy Peddler, begins his auction and Yang's arm has been disguised. We also learn that currency in this world are emotions or abstract concepts. Hugs, for example, are considered highly valuable. I don't know why, because that's an infinite source of money, but hardly anything is explained about C-197 and its rules. The talking raccoon puts a scepter that is obviously Yang's arm up for bid, and his starting price is what it's like to feel loved. And Yang, well, has this reaction. I don't know why she gives this reaction, since she knows what it's like to feel loved. Having friends and family tends to do that. But it's obvious that this is just more set up for something supremely gay, even though the reaction itself is stupid, but I digress. One of the guards bids against Yang with a royal decree, which I assume the talking raccoon takes because it's a royal decree. But it's also implied that payment was given.
Whatever it is, it's royal property now. No price is too high for His Majesty's birthday.
How did you pay it, though? Will the talking raccoon be paid once the auction is over? Did he get paid on the spot? Wait, sorry. The decree says whatever he wants, so we don't have to make sense of this stupid world. The speaking Procyanid puts the green doll up for auction, and RWBY wants to bid for it. The communicating Procyon asks for enough hope to fill a jar as payment. How does one fill a jar full of an abstract concept? Fuck you for asking reasonable questions. We need to treat the audience like children.
You don't have enough, do you?
Thanks for pointing out the fucking obvious. RWBY has been especially dour looking even by this point, and the opening makes it clear that she'll only get more and more depressed. Even the average RWBY fan is smart enough to understand this. Baggage steals the green doll, which breaks the spell disguising it and the other two items, showing what we already knew about the scepter, and that the green doll is Penny's sword. So, we have the things that the Moronics were looking for initially, and something very character relevant for RWBY. That's pretty convenient and becomes hyper-contrived once you understand how much of a head start the talking raccoon had to do the auction and sell the items. It would have to be several hours at the very least. The fact that he was just starting his auction and had the relevant items up for bid, because there's no telling how many he may have stocked up, is just so fucking lucky how all this lines up so perfectly. Also, Yang kills someone. Fucking Christ, a kick to the nuts would have been enough, you psycho. After they escape, it begins to rain in response to RWBY's sadness. This happened earlier in episode 1, but it could have easily been interpreted as an aesthetic thing rather than the weather literally responding to RWBY's emotions. Here, however, it's implied that no, it actually is responding to her emotions, which is never explained how or why it does that. Speaking of nonsensical world mechanics, Weiss wants to understandably head straight for the tree. Unfortunately, the plot punishes her for daring to try and do anything sensible.
Why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
There is an attempt at an explanation for the looping. Trying to intentionally go to the tree will cause you to loop.
Yeah, already tried that earlier.
This is in reference to the opening scene where Ruby looks at the tree, implying that's her destination. This is the most sense the tree will ever make. The special needs guards show up to arrest the Moronics, but Ruby instead wants to go with them to the Red King's birthday, and offers Penny's sword as a present. The scene itself serves as a kind of eulogy for Penny, while also adding value to the sword by describing the attributes she admired the most.
The weapon of a powerful warrior. She was touched by magic. She gave her life for thousands. She took a message of hope to the stars.
It's a pretty decent scene. By describing Penny in such a way, it ensures that the sword will have the emotional value according to what has already been established, and is Ruby saying goodbye to her friend. Now let's see how long we have before they fuck it up. The Moronics arrive at the Crimson Castle and are greeted by its ruler, a small, petulant, and insufferable autist, Chris-chan, who used to be the Red King in the book, but is now this.
My name is not Ian Brandon something! I am Christian Weston Chandler!
Yang then insults Chris-chan.
The king wasn't nearly as rude, or small, or loud.
Which he doesn't respond to for some reason. What he does respond to is Ruby and the rest wishing Chris-chan a happy birthday.
How do you know such privileged information? You must be infiltrators here to steal my crown!
But you announced that it was your birthday a minute ago.
And on my birthday!
Happy birthday, Your Majesty!
And there were advertisements around town for this party. Yang and Weiss even bring this up.
You literally just told us.
Also, we saw advertisements for your party everywhere.
You know, acknowledging that something doesn't make any sense doesn't change the fact that it doesn't make any sense. That is called lampshading, and it's not going to be the last time we see it. The two guards from earlier come in and offer Chris-chan Penny's sword as a present. He then flips his lid, kicks the sword away, and executes them because he doesn't like green. So all that value added on to the sword through Ruby's personal description didn't really mean shit, because it's green. It's not even like Chris-chan is so wealthy that he has things of more value and so sees the sword as worthless. He doesn't want it because he's fucking insane. Because C-197 is a fucking clown dimension. Also, why don't the guards know about Chris-chan's hatred for green? Do they not know about his encounter with the Pickle Man? Ruby offers to play a game with Chris-chan. If she wins, Chris-chan will help her get to the tree. Said game they will play is a simplified version of chess. Each piece can only move forward one space, and the goal is to take as many pawns as possible and get as many pieces to the opposite side of the board as possible. Ruby, however, doesn't have enough pawns, so Chris-chan shrinks the other Moronics to act as the missing pieces. Sure, that's just something he can do. Another point of reference I'll be making later. The game begins, and one issue that is made apparent is that the Moronics move more than one space. Luckily, I reviewed this episode like 2 years ago, so here's a clip of me explaining it. The game starts, and pay attention to the placement of the pieces. It'll be important. The first pawn moves forward one space and is beaten back. So far, so good. Then the very next move, the rules are thrown out as two of these pieces move more than one space. The one in front of Blake moves one space forward, but the one in front of Yang would have to move 2 spaces, possibly 3 given how fucking stupid the spaces themselves are shaped, and the one next to Yang would have had to have moved 3 spaces in order to attack. We're about 30 seconds into this, and already we failed to keep even the most basic continuity, so nothing out of the ordinary. Ruby orders Weiss forward, and she clearly moves 2 spaces. She would have to in order to take out this pawn. One thing I didn't bring up in that video is that Blake moves forward and then moves back, which is such a blatant violation of the rules, I'm surprised I didn't mention it before. The game inevitably breaks down once Ruby reveals that she's a human, but rather than send the guards after her, he continues the game and throws the rules out completely. ordering all the pieces to attack the Moronics. The following action sequence received a lot of praise when the episode came out, and in isolation it is pretty good. Unfortunately, you can't view it in isolation. Why weren't the Moronics using this level of teamwork in the fight with Cinder, especially during her drawn-out monologue? Why is Yang wasting her explosives on fodder when they would be far more useful on something that is actually dangerous? The fact they're having even the slightest amount of trouble with the pawns is also baffling when all Weiss has to do is use time dilation on Blake, who can get to Gatencho the pawns away in quick fashion. Now, is this the best fight since James versus Arthur from Volume 7? Sure, I won't argue against that, but the moment you put any thought into it, it falls apart fairly quickly. After the Moronics win, Chris Chan flips the table and wants them to be executed. He doesn't use his super shrinking magic, however, to slow them down, because if he did, the season would be over. Before anything can be done, though, a talking cat appears and soothes Chris Chan's aching heart.
And he promised he would...
Promises are like birds. They taste great, but always escape.
You're going to be doing this rhyming bullshit the entire time, aren't you? This is Sonichu, and he will be the Cheshire Cat stand-in. The curious cat's pronouns are... He was the one who led Alex to the tree in the story, so they follow him. But the episode isn't over yet. No, we finally catch up with Neo, who has just now landed, and on the literal opposite side of the level select stage. Stop. Just fucking stop right now. Holy Satan and Azathoth, the convenience meter has just skyrocketed. RWBY and Neo fell at the same time, yet RWBY landed first? Well, that's pretty fucking convenient that RWBY didn't have to deal with Neo, or potentially be killed before she woke up. But what I want to fucking know is, why does Neo end up in the literal Edgelands despite being pretty fucking close to RWBY when they were falling? But all of the Moronics are within walking distance despite all falling at different times and in different directions. The meth addict comes across Neo, and she has a semblance evolution out of fucking nowhere. Alright, we need to have rules established for this shit, because it's getting hyper contrived. What are the conditions for a semblance evolution? Ren got his after getting angry at the job squad for being strawmen. And Neo got hers through intense anger at RWBY, but that was something she already had. Her entire goal since Volume 6 was to kill RWBY because Neo thinks she killed Roman. Hell, if intense anger is what causes it, then shouldn't Crow have gotten his after Clover's death? Or Cinder after RWBY nuked her in Volume 7? Or Adam because he was defined entirely by his anger and hatred? Yang certainly should have gotten hers by now because she's had multiple instances of that. You know, if you come up with an idea, you need to actually think about that idea. Fucking Christ. So Neo orders the copies to kill the meth addict. And I will be coming back to this new ability later because it opens up a giant box of questions that I have. Back with the Moronics, and Sonichu is being a vague asshole.
You do not go to the tree goes to you, unless of course you're me.
I know I sound like a broken record, but how does that even work? How does the tree come to you? What does one have to do to get the tree to come to you? This is going ahead a little, but Sonichu also wants to get out of C-197. And the fact he doesn't tell them how is just dumb. Yeah, there is a kinda sorta soft explanation later, but it's more of an inference than an explanation and doesn't really make sense either. But for now, they try and persuade Sonichu in leading them to the tree by offering to tell him stories and have him play with RWBY's scroll. And oh boy, get ready for some blunt lampshading.
So, the old man and the boy share a body now? Oh, that's got some uncomfortable implications. Who thought that was a helpful way to reincarnate? The same people who put a city in the sky? Oh, speaking of Atlas, did that CL girl from the Vital Festival ever come back in a notable way? There's just so many characters to keep track of. Woo, those two brothers! Talk about a god complex, am I right?
And the hilarious part is that these are all the wrong criticisms to lampshade. The reincarnation method of Oz isn't the issue. It's that it makes things more difficult than they need to be. They want Oz to reunite humanity so they can give them a second chance. Oz has to reincarnate every time his host dies, and the next host is seemingly chosen at random. This actively wastes time in achieving what the gods want. Bringing him back and making him immortal like Salem would be far more efficient and achieve effectively the same thing. He'll still have people around him to connect with. After all, he did form an inner circle that shared his goals. So he won't be alone, which is the main reason why Chaseface did this method of reincarnation in the first place. Having Atlas float isn't the bad idea. The implication is that it was given the ability to float because of Salem, so it could move in the event that it needed to, which is perfectly reasonable for the technological and military superpower of the world. What is the issue is having it float above another city. That is the idiotic part, because everyone in the know should always expect the slim chance Salem could get the relic and cause Atlas to fall. Yeah, there are a lot of side characters with neat designs that were never mentioned or seen again. Which is fine because they were never meant to be that important. And finally, the gods having a god complex wasn't an issue. The issue is that they are wildly inconsistent with what they believe, specifically Chaseface. He's adamant on the balance of life and death but breaks it twice by making Salem immortal and bringing back Oz. Then both punish humanity for using the gift of choice they were given, and Chaseface says if humanity asks for their blessings while still choosing to fight each other, humanity will be exterminated permanently. Never is this inconsistency brought up in any conversation, and never once implied to be the fault of the gods. If anything, Salem being made immortal is seen as a tragedy of her own making, rather than the gods being colossal hypocrites. This kind of lampshading is quite honestly just lazy. Bringing up past inconsistencies does not stop them from being inconsistencies. And when said inconsistencies or issues aren't really issues by themselves, it makes you look extra incompetent because it's clear you don't actually want to admit your numerous failings and instead strawman the issue. Or you actually just don't understand the criticisms towards your show. What could have been done is bringing up the utter hypocrisy of wanting there to be no more secrets or half-truths, and then lying to James and keeping secrets from him. Or their retarded plan and ended in fucking failure, which could have opened up important conversations later that strengthen a certain choice RWBY makes this season. The best we get is him mentioning Salem having 2 relics and asking how they are going to stop her. This question distracts all of the moronics enough to lose Sonichu. Really? Weiss is looking pretty straight ahead in this shot. I understand that Weiss is the punching bag out of the main 4, but come on. However, Baggage saw Sonichu chasing a bug and didn't say anything. Serious question. Why did anyone ever like this fucking thing outside of it being cute? She contributes nothing. Fuck and all. The moronics hear a creepy humming and RWBY decides to follow it. Real showcase of intelligence there, RWBY. Go towards the noise in a place you know nothing about, dumbass. The humming leads to a pile of leaves and a giant caterpillar comes out of it. He's a drug dealer and RWBY needs some of that premium shit, so she follows him to his place, where he asks what is a huntress. This scene is here to demonstrate that RWBY's perception of a huntress has changed due to the ending of Volume 8. It also shows that RWBY has apparently gotten dumber, because she should understand the context of what the drug dealer is asking. Blake answers by saying they protect those who can't protect themselves, something RWBY should know. Hell, in Volume 2, the whole point of the campfire scene is about Yang, Blake, and Weiss realizing that being a huntress is about protecting people, while RWBY doesn't, because the implication of the whole episode is that she already knew that was the purpose of a huntress. So that answer from her is really fucking stupid. The drug dealer asks if they're good huntresses, and rather than give an actual answer, Yang says this.
Look, can you help us or not?
You know, Yang, perhaps that question is important in a place that values concepts and emotions that act as their literal currency. Something that you should know by now, you Muppet-brained tit. Tired of their shit, the drug dealer leads them to his smoking lounge. They want to leave because a giant bug man is getting high in front of them, but he blocks them off. Then he forces them to get high while asking what they are, and they see their Volume 1 selves. I suppose this is supposed to represent their insecurities? Yang's is pretty fucking stupid, though.
You don't have to go forward, you know. You could go back. Back to before.
Yang hasn't given a single fuck about her disarming for a good while now. Did we not have anything better for her? Blake's is better, but still a bit off.
It's simple, really. You could just be human. Or just a cat, if you wanted. Why would I do that? Much simpler than trying to be a bridge between humans and faunus. Why struggle with that responsibility?
I guess this makes sense given her history, but the issue is that nothing has been done with it since, like, Volume 5. So it's more damage controlled than anything.
The Schnee name. Why bother anymore? What does it even stand for now? Instead, you could be a nobody.
When the fuck was this a thing? Weiss's whole deal was to bring honor back to her family. I guess they needed something for Weiss, so they just made shit up. All three give their rebuttals, and it's all a bunch of stock bullshit. My mistakes made me better. I am my people, and I love my friends and family. Okay, Blake's doesn't really make much sense, actually, because it was about giving up being a bridge between humans and furries. You don't have to give away your connections to the people you love in order to give that up. Weiss's boils down to, I will define my name, which does at least line up. But notice how none of this has to do with their failures with Atlas and its fall. Yang's doesn't even bring up her hypocrisy in not wanting any more secrets and lies, while being complacent with secrets and lies. No self-reflection, just self-affirmation. However, RWBY's is very different.
Life isn't like a fairy tale.
That's right. It's up to you to make things better, isn't it? Everything all depends on you. The whole world needs you to keep fighting forever and ever against an invincible monster that took your mother. None of this seems fair.
What am I supposed to do?
You can do whatever you want. Be whoever you want. You don't even have to be Ruby Rose.
Wow, we're actually doing it, huh? We're going to use logic and sense? I'm not too used to that with this show anymore. It is an acknowledgement of RWBY's failures, and all the self-doubt that comes with it. How are you going to beat an invincible monster? Life certainly hasn't been like the fairy tales she took inspiration from. Multiple friends have died, as well as her mom, and her actions have caused global damage. And the crushing weight of the role of savior that she took on herself is overwhelming. Maybe Ruby Rose isn't good enough to take on that role. Is some of that more interpretation than what was intended? Sure, but I don't think it's unwarranted. It's a pretty good scene. Hopefully nothing fucks it all up. Sonichu comes in to break everyone out of their high and gives the drug dealer some of his heart. The drug dealer is then swallowed by the ground, and... Okay, this shot is actually fucking hilarious, and I'm stealing it for future videos. Anywho's, Sonichu leads them to a giant lily pad, and tells them about Ascension. Basically, when you've fulfilled your purpose or die, you return to the tree and are effectively reincarnated into something different. Well, sometimes.
Then he'll come back and find his purpose. Could be the same as before. Or maybe not.
This will help explain something a bit later, but also make things so much worse.
That's impossible. Things have to die someday.
Weiss, you're in a different universe that has different rules. You've seen and experienced things that would be impossible on Remnant already. I understand Weiss's purpose this entire season is to call out the bullshit of C-197, but saying blatantly stupid shit is just poor writing. They arrive at what I can only describe as a flea market, and Sonichu says this.
Exposition is terribly boring. Even this conversation was, on the whole, rather tedious.
Get it? It's funny because there was an exposition dump right before he said this. Except it made sense given it's Sonichu informing the moronics on things they don't know. And insulting the mere idea of informing the audience on important things is certainly a choice. But we move on. They're here at the flea market to get ingredients for a Go-Gurt so Yang, Blake, and Weiss can be normal-sized. They decide to split up, and while RWBY is shopping, everything goes dark, and she comes across a weird blacksmith lady who has Penny's sword. Keep this scene in mind, I will talk about it in depth later. RWBY snaps back to reality before the meth addict attacks. Luckily, she manages to buy the last ingredient for the Go-Gurt with her emblem, which represents a mother's promise. Why not just give the teapot abomination a hug? They're apparently very valuable and an infinite source of currency.
Is exceedingly bad.
Wait, what's a Jabberwalker?
Some people are really fucking stupid.
Blake, you literally listed off the meth addict when you were going over the plot of the story in episode 2.
Got trapped in vines, bought a Jabberwalker.
God damn, there's a lot of stupid bastards walking around.
You've been relying on this fucking story to get you through this bullshit world. How could you forget about it? You stupid fucking feloid. Sonichu says that if the meth addict eats you, you're gone forever. Not sure why a thing like this would be allowed to exist in this world, but we'll get there eventually. Then the moronics live up to their name by making the Go-Gurt, while the meth addict is attacking rather than running to safety to do it.
It wasn't enough.
Then eat more, retard. Sonichu even said that if you ate too much, you'd all have to make a different potion.
But be careful. Eat too much and we'll have to shrink you back again. And that's a completely different potion.
Implying you need more than a single handful, you stupid bitch. The meth addict charges them, so RWBY super speeds them away. Oh, I was told RWBY's semblance negates her mass.
RWBY is capable of traveling at an extreme velocity from one point to another by breaking herself down to her molecular components, thus negating her mass.
You know that's not how this works, right? Like, yeah, you can interact with massless things like photons and motion, but you can't physically knock them out of the way. Though, the most egregious thing in this scene is that RWBY doesn't just go in the opposite direction of the meth addict. If she did, she could keep going until she reached safety, and everyone could be normal-sized with no immediate issues. But stupid for the sake of the plot is RWBY's trademark. Continuing with said trademark is RWBY not doing it again when she runs away from the meth addict, who has now gotten bigger. Fortunately, they are saved by a bird person who Sonichu mind-controlled.
What's he doing here?
I gave him something new to do for the moment.
Yes, he can do this. Keep it in mind, I'm not done with it yet. The bird person is beaten back, and before the moronics are killed, even though RWBY could super speed away, an armored man on a giant jackalope comes in to save the day. How very convenient. Yang, Blake, and Weiss eat the rest of the Go-Gurt and become normal size. They kill the meth addict, and from the way it dies, it's revealed that Neo's clones can shapeshift. One major question: how did Neo know they'd be there? Or was she having her clones randomly attack groups of people in the hopes of killing them? And just how lucky is it that the meth addict was just far enough behind them to not attack them, while 3/4 of the moronics were small despite the detours and stops they made? Also, aren't the edgelands on the opposite side of the level select screen? So, Neo, with no idea how to find the moronics, sent a clone to find them on the opposite side of the world, and it found them in a day at most. That is some hyper-contrived bullshit. God damn, that is fucking stupid. More of the clones show up, and the Rusted Knight, who also conveniently saved them before they were going to be killed, leads them to safety, and we get this line.
I am so tired of leaving places in ashes.
Man, I can't wait to have that conversation. Hopefully it'll be good. The Rusted Knight reveals himself to be Jean, and the explanation as to why he's the Rusted Knight is, oh god, none of you were ready for how fucking retarded it is, nor the horrifying implications. Now, like with episode 3, I did a review of episode 6 a couple years ago, but after much reassessment of it over the last 2 years, I have come to the conclusion that this is the worst episode of RWBY ever made. So, Jean wakes up on the same beach as RWBY before wandering into the forest and coming across a tree with clock fruits. Yes, really. And instead of simply observing them, Jean decides to pick one and time starts going backwards. You would think with all of the magical bullshit Jean has witnessed, he'd be overly cautious of something like this. especially magical bullshit he's never seen. This is basic common sense at this point. However, that is small potatoes compared to the fact that RWBY has casually introduced time travel. The same show that can't even keep its own continuity straight. The same show in which basic coherency is an unattainable goal. The same show that avoids cause and effect like organized chaos, avoids an original thought in his brain, is going to introduce a mechanic like time travel.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
This scene right here is the most damaging scene in all of RWBY, full stop. Because in order for the character of the Rusted Knight to have been written down means that Jean has to end up in C-197. And if he's not in C-197 as the Rusted Knight to help Alex, it's likely that either the story doesn't get written or written as is. After all, Jean was trying to keep the story on track as best as he could as the Rusted Knight. Something he couldn't do if he was never sent back in time with the knowledge of the Rusted Knight in the story in the first place. And in order to end up in C-197 to pick the clock fruit and be sent back in time to become the Rusted Knight means that all of the important events and choices in Jean's life would have to be predetermined. They were always going to happen. This sets off a disastrous domino effect that completely destroys the concept of free will and freedom of choice. And this isn't me looking too deep into this. The events of volumes 1 through 8 have to happen the way they do. The fall of Beacon must happen because that is the foundational event that influences so many significant choices. The most important being James shutting down the borders and putting in place the dust embargo, which leads to Jacques working with Arthur, RWBY lying to James due to the heavy military presence in Mantle, James going insane due to the Moronics lying and Cinder's goons, which inevitably leads to the creation of the Central Void Hub. And in order for Jean to fall into the void, Cinder needs to fuck everything up, which means every choice she made in her life and the events tied to them must happen the way they happen. And almost all of this can only happen because of Salem and her influence. An influence that has affected every character in this show, either directly or indirectly. And this can only happen if she gets upset God won't let her get laid. Choices don't matter. The future is predetermined, taking away all meaning or value that choices have. Because they were always going to happen no matter what. So what is the point of getting invested in any choice that has been made or will be made? Because the choice is predetermined. Free will doesn't exist. There was nothing anyone could do to stop any of the death or destruction Salem or Cinder have caused. Nothing that could have stopped James from crashing out, or Penny and Pyrrha dying, Yang getting her arm cut off, Summer Rose dying, any of the traumatic shit that has happened to Oz. And what did we get for this? What was the payoff for stripping away the free will and freedom of choice in this retarded fucking universe? Jean is actually the character from the story everyone is referencing. A fucking stupid twist. That was sure as fuck worth it, you hack motherfucker! And this episode was written by the same guy who made dying a plot hole because souls can now form new bodies when separated from the original body? Now it all makes sense. Why is Eddie Rivas allowed near a Microsoft Word document? So, after that horrifying realization, Jean tells them what happened after they fell. Salem does indeed have 2 relics now. And finally, we start having a conversation about what happened at the end of Volume 8.
We lost Atlas and the relic.
But we got everyone out safely. Jean said so.
No, they didn't. Are we not even going to mention these people that fell into the void?
We risked their home to save the relic, and we failed.
Correct. You failed miserably.
Getting everyone out has to count for something.
What good is saving anybody if Salem just destroys the world anyway?
I mean, sure, saving almost everyone does count for something, but RWBY is ultimately right. None of that matters if Salem ends up destroying the world. She's halfway there as it is currently. I mean, There's really no reasonable counter-argument to it.
That's how Ironwood thought. You don't mean that.
See? All Yang can do is pull a Metal Man bad. No actual argument against that logic was presented, just an appeal to emotion. Even in death, James continues to be right.
Are you done? We need to move before the weather turns, or it's going to take us a lot longer to get to safety.
Don't you fucking pull us away from this conversation. It's pretty goddamn important.
There will be plenty of time to lick your wounds later. Come on.
Fucking course we can't talk about the widespread consequences of an entire kingdom's and its resources' destruction. Then we'd have to acknowledge that, perhaps, the Moronics might have been wrong in certain areas. And we can't fucking have that now, can we? As they're heading to Jean's village, Sonichu catches up with them, and Jean is not a fan. And we get more info on the tree.
That tree is death. It absorbs you, takes your memories, and turns you into something else. If you go there, it's going to erase you.
Then it's revealed that Alex had a brother named Louis, who Jean thinks was taken by the tree. Cool, but shouldn't you guys be moving? Jean was pretty adamant on getting moving.
We don't have time for this. We've got to get to my village.
Well, too late. Turns out this isn't a normal storm.
Welcome to a punderstorm.
I'm sorry, a fucking what?
Welcome to a punderstorm.
The fuck is a Plumbostorm?
A weather pattern that creates a physical manifestation of a mental or emotional problem.
The fuck is this memory store bullshit? Oh fuck, I just realized what they're going to do with this nonsense.
This place really is the pits.
Stop punishing characters for calling out the stupidity of your piss Wonderland ripoff. And so, we have the main reason this retarded thing exists. Blake and Yang are trapped on opposite ends, holding on to a fantasy bridge as strong winds push them around. Meanwhile, the others are facing their own issues.
I just don't get how the story is both real and not.
Ah, so RWBY doesn't understand the concept of creative liberties. Excellent. Anywho's, Jean tells them about his time with Alex and Louis, revealing that Alex was actually an uber-duper hyper-cunt that would constantly go off script and eventually poisoned Jean before heading to the tree without him. I'll get into this a bit later, but this show has a fucking fetish for dumping boogie-sized loads of trauma onto Jean. Back with the bumblefuckery, and they find out that the way to the center is to complement each other, which is supposed to be them confronting their feelings or something equally as gay. And so they complement each other. Each time they do so, the bridge becomes more complete, symbolizing their approach to their true feelings. And once they fully confess, they meet in the middle and kiss. And the bumblefuck is complete. Stick around, I have some thoughts. Sonichu finds Jean, RWBY, and Weiss, and RWBY has the audacity to be upset that Sonichu lied about his role in C-197. I don't think you have any room to be upset, sweetie. No, I will never let it go. Sonichu fucks off because he feels used, and the Clumberstorm storm ends. What in the absolute fuck was this inane rhino piss? Everyone gets caught in a magical storm that forces you to confront some mental or emotional problem, and they were only caught in that storm because Sonichu just so happens to show up, causing everyone to stop and argue as things were getting bad. So already we have a massive contrivance just to get everyone here. And how they got trapped inside the Clumberstorm is fucking stupid. Sonichu says they're stuck at a crossroads, and that triggers it? I'm assuming so because of Jean's reaction. And the crossroad there is what exactly? Is it to get to the tree or not, given what the tree is? That's what I'm assuming, but that's not what's presented. The Moronics are rightfully upset Sonichu omitted certain information. RWBY says it's a lot to take in, and Sonichu says they're at a crossroads, and then they're in the storm. And the stuff they have to solve inside the storm is fucking stupid. Why is Weiss with Jean and RWBY trying to figure out this crossroads bullshit? The destruction of Atlas is clearly in the forefront of her mind. She's referenced it multiple times and sees it in one of the mirrors within the storm. It would make much more sense if she had to fully confront her role in RWBY's plan that destroyed her home. Speaking of RWBY, why the hell is she in this crossroads bullshit as well? Wouldn't all the shit her drug-induced self said be on her mind? Hell, I don't buy they'd be at a crossroads because they were all mad at Sonichu and there was no hint that they were all torn about following him or Jean. Then we come to Yang and Blake. So, I'll give credit where it's due. The idea of the bridge getting longer the more they complement each other, each complement getting more and more intimate until they meet in the middle, is a good one. The visual representation is a bit on the nose, but not so much that it becomes pretentious. With that being said, this entire setup makes no sense for them. Not once have either of them ever shown any hesitation with their feelings for each other. It's all just background shit of them being cute, the only exception being Volume 6 with Adam's death. No conversations with other characters about the feelings they have. Pandering bullshit is all we get. That is why Bumblefuck is just hollow key jangling. Its foundations are flimsy, and that's being generous.
But wait, there's more.
The entire point of this Him-Bloom storm is to force you to confront some kind of important emotional issue. Jean says that the reason why Blake and Yang are not with the others is that they must have had a more important issue to solve. Everyone just realized that the tree is the source of Ascension and that Sonichu might not be trustworthy because he brings people to the tree to ascend. The tree is their only way back home that they know of, and Sonichu is the only one who can get them there. Since their only guide to their only way home may not be trustworthy, that leaves a massive possibility that they won't get home. Blake would never see her parents or son. Yang would never see Tai or Crow again. Both value their friends and family, and they are in immense danger because Salem has 2 relics, and they know this. And the fact that this bullshit matters more than the innocent lives that could be lost in Salem's campaign of destruction and death is the final death blow to these already clownified characters. But it was all worth it, right? We got to see them kiss. And that's all that matters in the end, isn't it? The jangling of the most rusted and decrepit keys to distract from all of the abject nonsense that has been vomited onto our screens. I'm so glad that characters I once cared about, despite the numerous writing issues, have been reduced to nothing more than hollow pandering to a small minority of shippers that only cared that it happened and not how it happened. Anyways, after the Oompa-Doomp storm ends, Jean brings them to his village and gives RWBY Crescent Rose, which he's had this entire time, which could only have been a day at most. Where or when did he find it? But oh no, upon looking at her weapon, RWBY begins to space out, the sound muffling around her.
I knew I'd caught back up to the time of my friend.
I have words to say about this, but I'll come back to it because, oh boy, it's going to be important. And you'll have to stay tuned for next time to see it. Yeah, I know, weird to break this into 2 parts, but I promise it'll be worth the wait. If you enjoyed my autistic rantings, consider subscribing and maybe even supporting me on Patreon, or giving me a Ko-fi donation. Also, head over to my best friends over at YARP. We're doing some really cool stuff and just finished Invincible Season 3. Until next time, my friends.